In books 1 through 4 of Homer's epic, we're going to see the story unfold according to the thread of Telemachus. He's going to pull us through the different twists and turns of the plot to get us started on the story. We're going to learn about Odysseus and his house, about Ithaca, about Penelope, mostly through the eyes of Telemachus. We're going to learn about what it is to be a Greek hero through Telemachus' representation, but most of what Telemachus is going to teach us about hero-ness is going to come in a negative way. Telemachus is a young man, and he's not quite ready to step up into the hero role that we're going to see his father has been executing out there in the wider world for his adult life. Telemachus is indeed a young man. He's 20 years old. His father's been gone for 10 years of fighting and 10 years of wandering, not quite back yet. So he's a young man, and surely by the standards of our day, that would count as a youth. Now, in the Greek take on things, though, 20 is plenty old enough to be out there taking some action. In fact, the great Greek warriors who become grand heroes get started on things about that age or a little bit younger. Achilles was off conquering whole swatches of territory at this age. 20 is plenty old enough to step up and get things done, but Telemachus is just not quite there yet. Now, when we meet him in repose. He's in a reclining kind of position in this sort of, you can imagine a kind of sylph-like form that he has. This is David's representation of him, filtered through the Renaissance, but surely captures something of what Homer had in mind with this figure of Telemachus. Young man, not quite ready to take action, and in this feeling of kind of languor over the situation. When we meet Telemachus, he is in a strange situation. He is daydreaming. We have Athena come up and make contact with him. She's in disguise, makes contact with him, and then we jump into, the narrative jumps into Telemachus' head. He could almost see his magnificent father here in the mind's eye. If only he might drop from the clouds and drive these suitors all in a rout throughout the halls. So Telemachus is just waiting for something like a miracle to happen, right? Well, you know, chances are his father is not going to just drop from the clouds and take care of things. So he's waiting for something impossible, and that's just not sort of natural hero stuff to have happen. Instead, if something's going wrong and a hero is around, a hero is going to take care of business. Heroes take things into their own hands and get things done. Telemachus is not quite ready for that. Instead, what he typically does is blame the gods, blame his situation, blame fate, blame others, but especially he blames the gods. Take a look at what he does on page 85, shortly after we meet him, 85 in Fagles' translation. Once we were a wealthy house, now the gods have reversed our fortunes with a vengeance. The gods have invented other miseries to plague me as well. So Telemachus blames what's happening on the gods. Well, sure, from this we can understand that the Greeks did have a very broad understanding of divine involvement in the world, and it might make perfect sense for someone to turn around and say it's the gods' fault. They're controlling things in a certain way, right? Take a look at another example of this, page 88 and 9. Telemachus jumps in at a moment in the conversation. Penelope has just come down from her chambers. She hears Phemius, the bard, singing tales of homecomings of the great heroes coming back from Troy. Recall what we're reading here, Homer's Odyssey is itself one of these kind of homecomings. So Phemius is, for us doing within the Odyssey, a kind of Odyssey, talking about homecomings of the great heroes from Troy. When Penelope hears this, she's sad. She wishes that Phemius would stop and says, "Oh, please, poet, relent, don't do this." At which point Telemachus jumps in and says, "Mother, that's actually not fair. You shouldn't be blaming Phemius, the bard, because bards are not to blame." He says, pages 88 and 89, "Zeus is to blame. He deals to each and every laborer on this earth whatever doom he pleases." Now, heroes typically don't jump in with this kind of fatalistic talk. Yes, indeed, it's true, the gods are busy, the gods are active, the gods are engaged in the world, but they don't typically blame the gods for all the things that go on in the world. When they reference that kind of aspect of things, it'll be something else is going on in a hero's mind. And if some nasty stuff is happening right in a hero's face, a hero doesn't say, "Oh, there's nothing I can do," and just step back and say, "The gods must be in control of it, so instead I'm going to sit back powerless and withdraw." They don't take divine involvement in the world as a way to sit back and exonerate themselves from action that they're responsible for taking. Heroes always jump in and try to take action as best they can. There is a kind of double determination that's at work in the Homeric world. There's a certain kind of determinism. If Zeus declares something, yes, indeed, it's going to happen. If the gods are involved in it, well, they're much stronger than we mortals, so they're going to kind of make stuff happen. But that determinism doesn't turn into a kind of fatalism, at least in the heroes' minds. Fatalism is a discussion of the weak, and in this case Telemachus is expressing that weakness, whereas what a hero does is step up and say, yes, great things happen by the gods, and now, gods, use my hands as instruments to execute your will and the fate of what's about to happen. The heroes assume that they are powerful cogs in the machineries of fate, and their hands are what's going to bring the fated outcome to fruition. They need to be involved, they need to be engaged. The more engaged, the more heroic. The less engaged, the less heroic. So Telemachus is giving us a side on the less heroic version of this here. As if we needed more proof on this, we'll see lots of examples when we come to Odysseus of him acting in this kind of a way. But take a look at the very beginning of the epic on page 78 in Fagles' translation. Within the first 100 lines, Zeus himself chimes in on this particular issue and says, "Ah, how shameless the way these mortals blame the gods. From us alone, they say, come all their miseries. Yes, but they themselves, with their own reckless ways, compound their pains beyond their proper share." So Zeus is saying, you human beings, sure, we're in charge of stuff, we run stuff, but you have to stop being reckless, and you've got to get engaged and take care of business yourself. Don't just sit back and blame us for all the bad things that happen. Now, when Telemachus needs to make this turn from the kind of a person that sits back and lets bad things happen and feels bad for himself, to the kind of person more like Odysseus who takes action and gets things done, he's going to need some guidance. He's going to need some help. The help Telemachus is going to get is going to come in this figure of Athena, disguised usually as mentor when she's the senior person helping Telemachus around. You'll see in the very first time we see her in book 1, she's actually in the figure of mentees, another elder figure who shows up, but typically is mentor. And for some of you out there are saying, wait a minute, does that have anything to do with the English word mentor, from which we get a noun and a verb, mentoring, to bring someone along? Yes, indeed it does. The English word is just drawn directly from the Greek proper name, and it becomes a very prominent word even in the contemporary discourse. So Athena, in this disguise as mentor, leads Telemachus along and brings him on a kind of a journey, literal as well as figurative, in order that he can grow up. That kind of back and forth starts to happen in book 1 as Athena jumps in and starts to help our youth Telemachus along, and she brings him through the things that he needs to do in order to gain these new capacities, to gain this new perspective, just really to grow up. We're going to see Telemachus' travels in our next book, but in closing things off, let's take an example of the old Telemachus, the early Telemachus, as he shows up. Book 1, we see him feeling sorry for himself and daydreaming. Athena comes along and kind of gets him going, but she does then help him, nudge him into taking some action. So at the close of book 1, he decides he's going to call an assembly. Opening of book 2, he does call the assembly. And when he does, it's a pretty sad result. He brings all the people together and says, oh, you suitors, I've had it up to here with you. And he gesticulates and gets angry and fulminates and says that this all has to stop. At which point, what happens, his reaction in the crowd of the people who are violating him, they all feel sorry for him. They pat him on the head and they say, oh, so sorry, Telemachus, we're eating you out of house and home. I can see how that makes you sad, but really don't blame us, you should blame your mother. So they pass the buck and talk about it as if there's some abstract thing that's hurting Telemachus. Don't take responsibility, and they surely don't engage Telemachus' attempt to engage them. So Telemachus is not quite ready. He does the right thing by calling the assembly, but he doesn't quite have the heft within his society to pull this off. Pity is not what you want to have happen when you come out and read a bunch of people the riot act. Instead, you're looking for something else. We're going to see that something else get stirred up in those suitors, but it's going to take a number of books before we get there. Once we do, those poor suitors, we might start to feel a little sorry for them instead of them pitying Telemachus. Next, what we're going to see is Telemachus off on his journey. We'll talk about that in the next lecture.